And somebody once said to me that, you know, the most valuable thing that we'll ever have is our story, because it's different from anybody else's. It's just unique for us. And it's great pleasure today to listen again to some of Myrtle's story. And I don't know whether coming to church for the first time, anyone ever felt a little bit nervous or unsure. But for me, for meeting Myrtle at the beginning of coming to Market Raise New Life was a great blessing, because I immediately felt here is a lady who was interested in me, seemed friendly and open. And as Mike was saying, you know, about us being image bearers, not just to the world, but very much to each other. And I felt immediately, when I didn't know very many people, there Myrtle was just connecting with me and being sharing that light of the love of God, the love of Jesus to me. So it's just lovely to be able to talk to her this morning, and that's enough from me. And it's over to Myrtle. And just tell us, Myrtle, where it all began. Tell us your story.
Well, where it all began, well, it goes back such a long way. For looking after children, I always knew when I was young that the thing I was going to do in life was look after children. I loved little children. We lived in Essex, and we attended a Baptist church in Essex. My mum was a lovely Christian lady, very, very talented, could do ever so many things, very difficult to live up to, but she was a wonderful woman and a good Christian. And then I realized she was a good Christian, but we can't become Christians just because our mum was a Christian. And in my youth, I think I was about 16 or 17, we had a lot of young people come from Cambridge University on a mission. They were lovely, and we had a lovely time. And it was made very plain to me that it was my time to make a decision, not to just depend upon my mum, who was a brilliant mum. And I did. I gave my life to the Lord, and it was brilliant. And I knew he was there for me. And eventually I was baptized. And let me see, I was baptized in 1951.
Wow.
That's a long time ago. And I know the good Lord is always with me, and I always wanted to look after children. Well, when I'd left school, then I got a little job in a nursery, and it was lovely. I loved all these little ones. And eventually I went up to London, and I was trained as a nursery nurse, which was brilliant, and decided, because I worked in a nursery there as well, that if I could look after children myself at home, that would be even better. So I left London and went back to Mum. And Mum was living in a windmill, very round it was. And she was greatly delighted at the thought of me coming home and having babies at home. The social workers were brilliant. They were all behind me and wanted to help all they could. And I did. I started having babies at Granny's windmill, which wasn't ideal, but it was lovely. And then eventually, let me think, what came next? Could be George that came next.
Tell us about George.
Yes, it was sort of like an arranged meeting. I knew his sister-in-law because we did pottery together. And she said, well, I've got a brother-in-law. I'd like you to meet my brother-in-law. Oh dear, oh dear. Anyway, I met the brother-in-law. Didn't think much about him much after that, but he did. And he got in touch with me because he lived up in London, very near where I was working, up in London, in the East End of London. And the weekends kept coming, and he'd go and stay with his brother, and I would be invited with my babies to their house. And he was very good with the babies, and he could change nappies. He was just brilliant. And I thought, well, this man is worth considering. So anyway, I did fall in love with him, and I'm very grateful I did. And he fell in love with me, bless him. And we got married, and that was lovely in the Baptist church. And then we moved to a cottage, which was lovely, but not very big. And we had about 6 children there at home. And we decided we really needed a big house, but we hadn't got the money to buy a big house. It was enough to do, just buy a little one. So anyway, we've got a whole group of people who are very kind, and they were praying for us that a house would be found for us. We looked at quite a few where ministers live. What are they called? Manses, that's right. And they were all right, but not quite what we wanted. And in the meantime, we'd read an article about the Children's Family Trust. And the Children's Family Trust used to, in those days, buy big houses, put a couple in to foster children and bring them up as their own, as a big family. Anyway, we got in touch with them and told them what we were doing, that we'd got about 7 children and we would like a bigger house, and was there any way they could help us. Well, they said, come and see us, bring the children. So we went up to Northampton, where they lived, and ran this organisation. And the children all very well behaved, made a good impression. And they said, yes, we would like to help you. We will look around and see if we can find a house, but they couldn't. But in the meantime, the chappie that started the Children's Family Trust was elderly and lived here in Lincolnshire, and he died. We never met him. And after a few weeks, they said, we've got the house for you. You can have the founder's house at Linwood Manor. And it was astounding. We thought, oh, goodness gracious me, that means moving all the way up to Lincolnshire. So anyway, we thought, well, we'll just go and have a look. So we took the children and we went and had a look. Well, it was lovely. And the garden and the flowers and the trees and the fields, it was beautiful, a lovely place to have children. And but we kept quiet, and we had a debate when we got home with the older children, and to see if they would like to move up to Lincolnshire to that house, and they did. They could see it was lovely. And so eventually we said yes, we would come. It was terrifying moving to such a huge house after living in a cottage. And we moved up to Linwood Manor in 1977. And I was so frightened of this great big house. I couldn't go in the dining room. It was so big. I had to eat in the kitchen. But anyway, we got used to it, and the children loved it, and we loved it too. And
so what was your connection with Market Rasen Church then? How did that happen?
I think it was only a couple of days later, there was a knock on the door. And there was this very nice young man. His name was Mr. Hiley. And he taught at D. Aston at the time, where our children were going to school. He was very nice. And he invited us to various things for a while. And then I don't always remember the dates of things and when we really did things. But anyway, he and some of the other churches, that was the Church of England, started up the Crusaders. Well, the Crusaders was brilliant. And all the children could go to Crusaders. And we all took a class, and so I did the babies, of course, and George took a class, and we all had class. And then the children went on Crusader holidays, which were absolutely lovely. And it was just that the good Lord always looked after us. There were sad times. We lost the little lassie just before we moved up. And she'd got very bad asthma, and one Sunday night she couldn't breathe anymore and she passed away. Now, she was absolutely lovely, and she used to sing and sing, and the children used to go to a Pentecostal Sunday school before we moved up. And they learned all these lovely choruses, and they used to go to bed and sing until they all went to sleep. That was lovely.
So what got you through the sad times, Myrtle?
If you've had times, but the good Lord was there with us. And you see, what I've forgotten to tell you was George had become a Christian. He went to hear Billy Graham, which we all did, but I didn't know he did. And he went to hear Billy Graham, and he went forward at one of Billy Graham's meetings. And so anyway, we were at Linwood, or going to the Crusaders, and the good Lord looking after us, and more children.
How many children altogether then have been through your care?
We brought up 14 children. Now, we didn't have foster children that just came for a little while because there was a disaster at home or something. Ours were children that came to stay and to live with us forever family. And we brought up 14 children. And
okay.
Yes, that was it.
That's absolutely wonderful. And I look forward to hearing more and more of it, your story, which goes on. And there's so much more. But we'll have to pause there, Myrtle, and thank you.
I might go on talking for hours.
Please do.
That's lovely, thank you.
We'll pause at the moment. Thank you, Myrtle, for your story.